Hello! Spring books. Today's book recommendations are gonna be about happiness and sunshine. Okay? Happiness and sunshine.
Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh honey, though our friendship ceases from now on. Please don't talk about me when I'm gone. Oh honey, though our friendship ceases from now on.
Hello everyone, my name is Leonie, welcome back to the channel. Today I am back again with another book recommendation video to give you a little bit of an idea of what books to read for the new season. It is spring, it's currently very beautiful weather outside and I'm inside. For me, the moment the sun starts shining, the moment the sun starts shining is actually the moment that I start reading more, because it's the time that I want to like sit in the garden or walk to a local park by my house and just sit for hours and just read and actually get a lot more reading done. I really wanted to talk about some books that really fit that spring feel, that frolicking through meadows, Ghibli house moving castle feel. Things like cozy fantasy, some fun, happy romances, just generally books that feel like they would include characters prancing through a field. That's the kind of books that I want to talk and recommend to you guys today. It was actually pretty hard to come up with a very extensive list because apparently I just read a lot of books that are kind of a downer. But I do have a list of about 9 books. We have 9 books that I want to recommend to you across all genres. Let us start with a fantasy book. I really think that the springtime is a great time to tackle this beautiful brick and mammoth of a book that is The Priory of the Orange Tree by Samantha Shannon. This is a standalone fantasy, which is already always a plus. It's about 800 pages, but that's okay because it's a standalone and it really feels like its own journey. It's one of those books where nowhere on the book you can find what it's about. Like, it's just people talking about how great it is. The most important thing that you need to know is that we follow about 4 different kingdoms in a fantasy world where dragons are real, and it's very interesting to see how these different kingdoms approach dragons and dragon legends in different ways. And the story basically starts because the dragons, who should have been asleep for years, are waking up again. And you follow 4 characters from these 4 different kingdoms as they deal with this in their own way. There's a lot of political intrigue, a lot of very well done in-depth mythology, made up mythology for this world, and it's definitely something you can get lost in while in the spring, while the sun heats your skin, you know? Getting a little reptile energy going. I think this book is mostly known, or at least that's how I see it being recommended on the internet, as a fantasy with a sapphic romance in there. I do want to say, for anyone who picks up this big book expecting it's gonna be like a romance fantasy, it's not. The romance is a very small part of the book, but it is there and it is good. Also, I actually recently found out that Samantha Shannon is coming out with a sequel to this. I'm pretty sure this still stands on its own, but there's another book coming playing in the same world as The Priory of the Orange Tree, so interesting thing to look out for. More fantasy. More fantasy? Yeah, let's just do more fantasy. Okay, I want to recommend a very happy fantasy series that I really should probably continue. And that is the Nevermore series. The first book being The Trials of Morgan Crow. It's one of those middle-grade fantasy stories that makes fantasy feel magical, completely magical and fun again, and that to me really fits the vibe of spring and just flowers and happiness. We follow Morgan Crow, who has been told that she is going to die on her birthday. Wow, that does not sound like definitely that does not sound like the start of a very happy fantasy story. She is told that she is going to die on, I think, her 10th birthday? Child age. She's gonna die at the age that she is now, at which she is a child. Her birthday rolls around and nothing really happens. And she's like, what's going on? I thought that I was supposed to die. Then she gets an invitation from a mysterious magical man, you know, your typical magical man in fantasy stories, and he says that she's invited to join the Wondrous Society. The only thing that she has to do is compete with other children who are also invited to the Wondrous Society in all these trials, and the winners will be part of this secret society full of people with magical talents. And she's like, sure, sign me up. The only problem is that Morgan Crow does not have a talent. She has no magical talent, or at least she doesn't know what it's supposed to be, why she's even there, and you're trying to figure that out. Basically, this series is just a magical school, which is always great. It involves trials, which is also always great. And it's just very super happy and fantastical, so I highly recommend this. Don't be afraid of the fact that it's middle grade. Middle grade books can still be very, very fun to read at any age. Now that we're talking about middle grade and also fantasy, let me just recommend the last there's even more fantasy books. Another fantasy books. I also have non-fantasy books on the list, don't worry, but another fantasy book that I think is perfectly cottagecore vibes is Baker's Magic. We follow Bee, very appropriate name for spring. She steals a bun from a baker, and one thing leads to another, and he actually invites her to work at the bakery. And as she works at the bakery, she finds out that she has magical powers that come to life through baking. It's baking magic. This book is about bread and magic. What else could you ask for? Bread and magic. That's cottagecore if I ever thought of anything. You know those TikToks of people making bread and like cutting really beautiful patterns into it so that when it bakes it turns into this like beautiful flowers? That vibe of those TikToks, that's what I think of with this book. Good vibes. And the last of the springy fantasy-ish books that I would like to recommend is Circus Mirandas by Cassie Beasley, another middle grade fantasy story. Here we follow Micah, whose father is on his deathbed. Again, I know this doesn't sound like a happy, funny spring story, but trust me, it will get there. His grandfather has always told him that there is a circus, a magical circus, Circus Mirandas, that just travels around the world, and no one believes him, of course, except for Micah, the little boy. He's like, I do believe my father, and I am going to find this circus so that they can help my dying grandfather. It's very cute, very magical, circus vibes. I mean, you guys know that I love the night circus. The night circus is like autumnal, wintry, but then take the night circus and turn it into a springy, summery, sunny vibe that is like middle grade, and then you have Circus Mirandas by Cassie Beasley. Next up, let's talk about classic, actually, that I would... No, the romance books. Let's talk about some romance books. Okay. As a wise man once said, we all get Twitter-pated in springtime. So, the first springy romance book, if you've been watching my videos for a while, you know which book I'm going to mention probably here, because it's just peak summer sun happy spring vibes, and that is Well Met by Jen DeLuca. Oh my gosh, this book made me so happy. Imagine this. You are taking care of your sister because she broke her leg, and she's like in the middle of like rural nowhere in, I think it's Maryland, and you're just helping her, but you kind of have nothing to do. You don't have a job, and you're like, kind of feel like there's something that I should be doing around here to like make friends, and your sister's like, hey, there's a Renaissance fair here every year. And you're like, that sounds freaking lame, but I have nothing else to do, so sure, I'll go help prepare this Renaissance fair. Now, the town's English teacher also works at this Ren fair. He kind of orchestrates things. He's very passionate about it, very serious. He really wants other people to take it serious as well. But you just still kind of think that it's lame, and it's really getting on his nerve that you're not taking it seriously, and he's getting on your nerve that he's so like stuck up about everything. Weeks later, the Ren Fair starts. Everyone is getting into character. You have your beautiful tavern wench outfit. It's giving 16th century chic, and you are acting out your Ren character. enter this English teacher man that's been getting on your nerves so much. He's a different person. He is flirting freely with you. You're kind of both in character and you kind of flirty with each other. You kind of like each other. You kind of have a little banter going on. But then when you're out of character again, it's back to being annoyed with each other. It's just as good as it sounds. My motto for this book has always been the last 50 pages of the book don't exist. We just pretend they don't exist, okay? Otherwise, fantastic book. And the other romance book that I would recommend for spring, specifically for spring, is kind of a cop-out. I feel kind of dumb every time I recommend this book because I feel like everyone has already read this. But, you know, there's always people who don't know about it yet. And I just want to introduce you to Red, White, and Royal Blue by Casey McQuiston. This takes place in kind of like a alternate version of modern times. The current United States president is a woman, and the main character is the first son of said president. He goes on a business trip where he meets Henry, the Prince of the UK, who is kind of annoying. You don't really get along, but your parents are like, hey, this is not good press, so you need to prove to the world that you get along and give them the idea that you get along because politics. So now you're stuck with this British man trying to prove to the world that you actually get along very well and it's all fine and dandy. What a perfect setup for a romance it is. Read this book to bring some sunshine into your life. Hello, I'm editing this video and I just realized I completely forgot to mention the most obvious book on this list. The most spring perfect meadowy frolicky book that is out there, that of course I have to recommend for this video, and that is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. The story is quite different from the Ghibli movie that was made out of it, but it has that same feeling, which I think is exactly what we need for spring. So if you are in the market for just a like the epitome of a cozy fantasy with some wizardry, some curses that need to be lifted, a very flamboyant wizard howl, and that medieval German town to rural meadowlands feeling. If you're ever gonna read this book, now is the perfect time. Diana Wynne Jones also has a lot of other books. I haven't read them yet, but I'm sure they have the same feeling as Howl's Moving Castle does. Okay, back to the other books. Now lastly, I have a few classics that really give me spring vibes. First, I have Mrs. Dalloway by Virginia Woolf. This is very short and sweet and tells the story of Clarissa Dalloway as we follow her through just one day as she goes through the organizations of a party that she's organizing. But what makes this book so special is that, well, Virginia Woolf's writing style was very new, very stream of consciousness, so you really get a peek into the mind and all the thoughts that go through Clarissa Dalloway's head, and also all the other characters that you meet along the way. All the other characters that she just like briefly comes into contact with at the flower shop on the corner of the street. A man that's romantically interested in her and is too afraid to ask her out. That's what I found really beautiful about this book, is that it shows how you can say so much about these characters and who they are as a person, even if they only appear for 2 pages. Sunshine falling through leaves, that's the feeling that this book gave me. Oh, okay, wow, I'm so dumb. I kind of forgot that another part of this book is that Clarissa Dalloway's day kind of runs parallel with the day of another character, Septimus Smith, whose madness is like slowly escalating throughout the day. Not very happy. It's actually extremely not happy now that I remember this part of the book. But hey, not everything in spring can just be nice and happy and sunshine, right? Sometimes there are rainy days. So it's still a really good book. Speaking of that, the last book that I would really recommend you read in the springtime is just one of my favorite books of all time in general, and that is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. You know, with life springing up everywhere and birth and flowers all around, you need to be reminded of your own deterioration and aging, and that's what this book can do for you. Imagine that you are a beautiful man, a young, intelligent, I don't know if he's intelligent. He's rich, young, and beautiful, that's for sure. You get a portrait made of yourself that looks absolutely beautiful. It's an exact representation of how you feel in life. But because of a few bad influence friends, you are just slowly drawn to like the life of excess and corruption and destruction of a character. We love to read about it. This book just has beautiful lyrical writing. Oscar Wilde knows what he's doing. I don't know why I keep recommending kind of like sad books for spring. Okay, there needs to be balance in life. When there's beauty and flowers all around you, I feel like that's the perfect time to read about something deteriorating. And lastly, I just wanted to talk about 2 books that I really want to read that I think have perfect spring vibes that I just wanted to mention, because even though I haven't read them yet, I do think that they're just like great books for spring, so I want to mention them to give you just an extra idea of books to read for spring. The first one is a book that I'm actually lending from a friend. It is The House at the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This has been described as perfect cozy fantasy about an old man as he takes care of like a group of young magical orphans, I think. I'm expecting this to be the perfect spring beach hanging out with loved ones kind of vibey story. And the other one that I want to mention is that I really need to read the Heartstopper graphic novels, because the TV show actually came out like a couple of days ago, which I'm constantly astounded by how fast TV shows come out, and I really want to read the graphic novels first. I've been told that you definitely appreciate the show more if you read the graphic novels first, and it's also apparently just like extremely cute. So I think that definitely fits into the Twitter-pated spring vibes. Keep in mind, you can also, if you don't want to buy the physical graphic novels, you can just read them online for free. Like, it was originally a webtoon, and you can always donate money to the author, I think, through like that website. Definitely let me know in the comments if you have more frolicky, meadow, spring vibe books. Also, don't forget that you can always join the Discord if you want to give each other book recommendations or get book recommendations from other people in the community. I will always link it in the description. And other than that, yeah, subscribe. Thanks. If you're in the southern hemisphere, I have an autumn book recommendation video as well, in case you're interested in that. And yeah, I just really hope that you'll have a wonderful time, wonderful, beautiful, sunny, warm days, and I will see you soon in another video. Goodbye.